Hi and welcome to this video in which we're going to look at preparing a questionnaire for data entry and testing it before we do that to make sure all the logic and any other features that we've asked for have been implemented correctly. So we've got a very short questionnaire here of 4 questions with gender and age to follow, and you'll see in the questionnaire that we've got a couple of filters. We've got a filter called FQ1, which is all who own a bicycle, which is yes at question 1, or the first answer at question 1, and that's been applied to question 3. And at question 4 is using another filter, FQ1Q2, which has been defined here, which is people who said yes at question 1 and also chose more than 50 kilometers at question 2. So you might want to test the routing on this questionnaire to make sure that the right people are going to answer the question when it goes live. And there can be other things that you want to test here. Sometimes you're pulling through texts from other questions or responses. You might be dynamically pulling through a brand from a previous question. All that sort of thing can be tested in exactly the same way. Now, what you might want to do first of all is to test just part of a questionnaire rather than the whole questionnaire. So let's imagine this is a much bigger questionnaire of 50 questions or something. We may have been working on this part of the questionnaire here, and we may want to check that the changes we made have been implemented correctly. So by highlighting this block of questions, we could do a selected entries test. So let's do just that. Now, when you come to do a selected entries test, or any test actually, you do need to consider whether you're testing for paper or for CAPI, because some features will only be appropriate to CAPI. For example, randomization of questions or responses within questions would only work with CAPI. On a paper interview, it would come through in a fixed order. So if you're using those sorts of features, you would need to make sure you're doing a CAPI input test. With this particular questionnaire, it doesn't actually matter too much, so I'm actually going to leave it as paper, and I'm going to click OK. And what this means now is that I can add a record, or test that I'm adding a record. You'll see that it's in test mode by this big red sign down the bottom here. So I'm testing my data entry, and it will take me through the flow of the questionnaire depending on the answers I give. You can see down the left hand column here that what's been entered so far, so there's nothing been entered yet. And I can enter with my mouse or my keyboard. So I'm going to use the keyboard here. If I say 1 to this question, it'll pass to question 2. If I put 60 in here, which is obviously greater than that filter of 50 kilometers, it's going to proceed to question 3, and on when I type a 1 here to question 4, and you can see all of the answers down here are stored, have been collected rather, and we can try another route through the questionnaire. So this time I'm going to type no to the first answer. I'll do it with my mouse this time. I'm going to put in 10 kilometers here, and you see that's the end of the questionnaire, and these 2 questions have been skipped because they didn't fulfill the filter. I can test another one. This time I'm going to test that they say yes here, but they don't do 50 kilometers, they do 40 kilometers, which means they do question 3, but they skip question 4 still. So we've tested some routes through the questionnaire, and we could also test any other features there. Sometimes you might put a check into a questionnaire. Let's say you've got 3 questions that add up different 3 percentages, and you want to check they add to 100%. You could put a check in the questionnaire to make sure those figures add to 100%, and that might be part of your testing procedure. Alright, so we've now tested part of our questionnaire. We can do a full test on the questionnaire. Again, same principle, choose paper or CAPI, and we can just pass through the whole questionnaire, and the whole questionnaire is tested from start to finish. So that's the sort of steps you go through to test your questionnaire, but that's not necessarily got it ready for data entry. So if we wanted to proceed to data entry, we could click on Answers, make an input file, make sure we got Live Data Entry clicked, choose between paper and CAPI, and click OK. Now, when we do that, you'll see this warning message comes up, which says there are no ZZ entries in this project. and it's good practice to have ZZ entries. Now, what ZZ entries do is they collect things like system data, the date, the time, the person who entered the data, how long the data entry took for a particular record, and store that with the survey data. So it's sort of like keeping an audit trail of your data entry, and you can also check how long surveys are taking to key in. So if we click no to that and don't want to proceed, what we can now do is surround this questionnaire with those system entries so that it's automatically collected for us. Now, the way we do that is to use one of the what's called skeleton questionnaires that comes with the QPSMR system. And if we go to the QPSMR folder, you'll find in Program Files NetMR a folder called QPSMR Tools, and it will come with 7 skeleton questionnaires, 1 for paper, 2 for CAPI, 1 with GPS and 1 without, and 3 different ones for CATI. Now, you can choose one of those, and what we're going to use is the paper one on this occasion. So I've actually got that open already. So here's the paper questionnaire, and what I'm going to do is paste my questionnaire into this skeleton paper questionnaire, and I'm going to put it between the start questionnaire and end questionnaire. Now, what are all these other things in here? Well, these are the things that are collecting system information. So if we go to the top, you'll see that it's collecting the user login name, the date that it's being entered, the time, the name of the computer, the total time in seconds to input the data, the number of keystrokes, and so on. So all this information is being recorded at the same time as your data entry, and it's being done automatically without the user really knowing that's going on. So if we want to, we could just grab our questionnaire over here, copy that, go over to our skeleton questionnaire, and we can paste that in there using the paste tools. So now we've got our questionnaire of 4 questions and gender and age within a skeleton questionnaire, and we can save that, and we might save that to a different name. So we might call that final questionnaire. And we've got our final questionnaire in the skeleton questionnaire with the questions that we set up in a separate file. So now we could test that and proceed. So we can test input, and it will look exactly the same now, because actually all the other questions on the questionnaire are just system things, and so nothing's being collected. And so actually the test within here is going to look exactly the same as it did when we did the test without all those other controls around it, and it looks as though it's proceeding fine through the questionnaire. I'm just going to put a 2 in this time, and you see it skips straight to gender, and it looks as though our testing is working, and we're actually ready now to go ahead and make an input file so that we can do live data entry. And you can save that input file and proceed from there. Now, 2 things to say. First of all, another video is going to cover how you do data entry, what it looks like using data entry, how you deal with going back to questions and so on. And there's also a separate video that will take you through a list of all of the ZZ entries that are available so that you can collect these system settings, such as the date and time, the person entering it, and indeed some things at the end here, such as the final status of the questionnaire. And you can also time sections of the questionnaire. But as I say, that's covered in a separate video. Thank you.